It's good to be here. Thank you for inviting me, EJ, Joy, and the rest of the crew from One Breath Rising. The book title that you mentioned first off the top is called Che Che Colé, which is from a salsa song taken from African Call and Response, Billy Colon's song, Che Che Colé. Even though these days he's become very right, I'm really like a little worried about the guy, but he's a MAGA nut.
Oh.
But all right, I'm gonna try. How much time do I have to rock the house?
You have like 30, 35 minutes. So stretch out.
Hold on, I'm gonna stretch it out. I want to dedicate this reading to Jordan Neely, who was murdered in the subway station a couple of weeks ago. It wasn't vigilantism. It was just, the usual murderous white supremacist psychosis that's going on in the country. So it's a mixture of Black Lives Matter with, let's say, some poems dealing with, I guess, the pandemic. This is called Cannibals on U Street for the Young Lions at Cafe Nima. Regardless of which nightstick hits you upside your head, it still cracks in 4/4 time. The streets still flow red. The gutter chokes on cherry blossoms. Rain splinters into kisses. Horses gallop out of horns, punching holes through smoky neon air. Death is a woman you mistook for a bass, stringing her along. Somewhere a bomb is dropping. Somewhere a baby is screaming. Somewhere your mama is dreaming. You'll come home. You'll come home. In Venice, dolphins swim the canals. In Venice, dolphins swim the canals. As LA skies are crystal ball, the coming of the cicadas and DC's cherries opening like parasol debutantes. The streets are empty. Everyone is sheltered in as a virus rages like Ralph Ellison, invisible to the naked eye, while a naked ape, an orange idiot, sounds the savant babbling about it being a hoax, it's all a hoax, telling us from the White House, don't believe your lying eyes, as refrigerated trucks in Brooklyn stockpile bodies and freezers like popsicles. This Agent Orange menace is a virus unto himself, as racism is, as stupidity is, in a country where Confederate statues are more visible than common sense. A virus named after cheap piss water beer. This menace barks, China, 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 as if repulsed by his wife's vagina. At a press conference, he bogarts the mic from the experts who know more about science than he knows about stealing, telling us hydroxychloroquine malaria pills are good as Tic Tacs at fighting bad breath. He should know, and if that doesn't work, you could spray down your tongue with Lysol or belt back some Clorox to crank your box. In Venice, dolphins swim the canals free of debris, while here Black joggers are hunted by fathers and sons in a rite of passage Jim Crow outdoor trailer trash parlor game, as Amy or Karen or Becky with the bad brain scream hysterically into cell phones at 911 operators in their worst Stanislavski method acting, like the Black birder is a mockingbird, while an essential worker EMT cannot get any PPE. She got 8 bullets into her bone-tight sleeping body in a 21-gun salute to T.S. Eliot with a side of side-eye because May is the cruelest month, especially during a lockdown where racism and hate are never quarantined, yet a Black man remains a stepping stool for a white man's knee who drummed out Colin Kaepernick as if a flag takes precedence over a Black life. Okay. So from the crushed voice box of Freddie Gray. And this is a piece I wrote, I guess the day he was killed, and there was all these protests going on like 24/7. I know I was posting a lot of books, but I went to bed, I went to bed very angry and upset. And two things were rumbling in my head. I guess as this poem really woke me up and wrote itself. There was this incident where a young Black male was handcuffed in the back of a patrol car with his hands behind his back, and he died of a bullet wound to the chest, point blank range. The medical examiner reported that it was ruled a suicide. So that coupled with the Freddie Gray attack, which, you know, I believe that they killed him prior to putting him into the back of a paddy wagon, as we call it back in the day, and broke his neck because you could see his legs. He didn't have any legs, basically. This is called From the Crushed Voice Box of Freddie Gray. I am the magic Negro, the Black Houdini, who done it to himself. I handcuffed my own damn self. I threw myself in the back of the patrol car. My hands shackled behind my back, slave ship cargo ago. I am the magic Negro, the Black Houdini, who done it, does it to himself, him Black self. See ma, no hands. I snatched the pistol from the white man's mind, from the back of the patrol car. Suck on this, Houdini. I grabs the gun and shoot myself in the chest, neo-colonial style. The autopsy report says, damn, would have been easier to walk on water. I bet you a quarter he done shot himself. I am the magic Negro, spineless. I broke my own spine after hog-tying myself into a pretzel. Even Houdini, who done it, would envy, only to turn myself into a human pinball, rattling around the steel gullet of a Negro pickup truck once reserved for newly arrived potato famine New York Irish drunks down on their luck. Me, moi, it is I who was Othello. Oh, hell no. Yes, me, the magic Negro, the Black Houdini, who done it, does it all the time to himself, his own damned self. This is called Double Dare. Was the cop kneeling on George Floyd's neck as he lay gasping for his last breath, praying to his white Jesus? Was he taking a knee to shine a light on police brutality? Was he brutal when he rocked back and forth like a hobby horse, applying pressure? Did the rocking make him think about his childhood? Was he daydreaming with one hand in his pocket, cowboy ritual applying more and more pressure as George Floyd managed to cry out for his dead mother? I can't breathe. Please, your knee is on my neck. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Was he caught up in his childhood days, magically thinking he was back on that dime store horse, or on top of his Amy Cooper or Karen or any old Becky Bronco, breaking from his past, aggressively groping, applying all that pressure as pedestrians pleaded with him to stop, to stop, to stop? Did the cop get his rocks off as he rocked back and forth until George Floyd was no longer pleading? Did he enjoy taunting George Floyd's limp flesh as a piss stream leaked out of his Black body along with his last breath, when the lynch mob, photo op gleam in his eyes, whispered to a dead George Floyd, get up, get up, get up, as if a dare, a double dare, or a simple dime store memory? Giddy up, giddy up, giddy up. This next piece is from a graphic novel that I wrote called I Am Alfonso Jones. And this is basically from the perspective of his mother, who's being interviewed by the media. And Alfonso Jones was a 6-year-old Black Puerto Rican kid from the Bronx in Harlem who is killed while trying on, suit jackets to see his father released from prison after 15 years behind bars, exonerated on DNA testing for rape and murder he did not commit. And so he's trying out his first suit. But this is his mother basically, she could be talking about anybody's mother. It's from chapter 35, Born to Trauma. He was my miracle boy, the one who almost didn't make it. Every time he left the house, I prayed. You don't know what a mother goes through. Dreamt I ripped that cop's eyes out, screamed and swung and scratched at his face, and woke up in a sweat, screaming, "What have you done? What have you done? What have you done to my beautiful baby boy?" I'm not gonna let you turn my son's death into a reality show episode. Every few weeks, every so many months, another Black body at the hands of white police, Black police, any old police. Here you come again, trying to parade us around TV to cry out on cue, cry out for a justice we never get. We're not gonna let you make a circus of our pain. Our Black misery is not for your white amusement. Why do you think I fought to get my son into Henry Dumas? Because it was a school that was created from grassroots organizing and did not depend upon a curriculum that excluded his reality. Had that damn security guard cop, Officer Whitson, went to a school whose books reflected a broader reality than his narrow lily white mind, had movies, TV, whatever reflected that, maybe he would have seen my son as a teenager, as a person, as a citizen, as an American, as a human, and not something to be so easily, so rapidly, so wistfully disposed of. His girlfriend said he shot my baby like a deer, like a deer. And all he was doing was buying his first suit. All he was doing was trying on a damn suit. I guess you got what you wanted. This is from the introduction to 13 Ways of Looking at a Black Boy. Black boys scrape their knees, they bleed. Black boys cry and scream. They tackle life like air gliding on wind, basking in a breeze. Black boys sit beneath trees, inhale fresh cut grass and dream. Black boys play with building blocks, are fascinated by clocks, cradle skateboards under their arms. Black boys love basketball and books, toss footballs and leaf through pages lost in stories and myths. Black boys love comic books and superheroes, are heroes to little sisters and brothers. Black boys love popcorn and watching movies, love their grandmas and grandpas. Black boys hug and kiss their moms and emulate their dads. Black boys wear their daddy's shoes and ties, smear shaving cream on their smooth faces, giggling in steamy mirrors. Black boys shine bright in sunlight, build snowmen and have snowball fights. Black boys study the stars, looking through telescopes, lie on their backs in tall grass, staring at the blanket of blue sky, at all the eyes smiling and twinkling down on them. Black boys like to hum and drum, bebop, hip hop, like to dance and sing, jazz and scream. Black boys are 3 dimensions of beauty, Black boys go to church, ride buses, go to school, sit on stoops, fly kites, shoot hoops. Black boys like to sit in their quiet and think about things. Black boys are made of flesh, not clay. Black boys have bones and blood and feelings. Black boys have minds that thrive with ideas like bees around the hive. Black boys are alive with wonder and possibility, with hopes and dreams. Black boys be bouquet of tonka, bunched up like flowers. They be paint blotched into a myriad of colors across the canvases of our hearts. We celebrate their preciousness and creativity. We cherish their lives. This next piece, I wrote it after seeing a news item that took place in Harlem a couple of years back. And I was, it just got me so incensed. So what happened was that a girl was being driven to school by her father. And I guess it was from the point of view of the girl, the camera. And when her father took her to school, he was arrested right on the spot in front of the school by ICE agents. And I said, oh God, I got to deal with this, right? But I was leaving the country for 6 weeks or whatever. And I said, I have to write about this. And I wanted to write about this for this anthology. We Rise, We Resist, we Raise Our Voices by the Hudsons, Wade and Cheryl Hudson. And so, and they, imposed a deadline. I totally forgot about it. When I got home, they reminded me, and then I sat down and wrote it. And of course, it's a fictionalized account, but this is what I came up with. It's called, and the art is by Idel Rodriguez, a great Cuban-American artist. And here's 2 spreads like that, okay? It's called One Day Papi Drove Me to School. One day, Papi drove me to school like he always does, talking about my homework, science, history, and math. He made a funny face when I told him all I had to add. Lots of kids were in front of the building and others were being dropped off. I turned to Papi to ask him, will you pick me up after school? And before I knew it, 4 cops came running toward him. I heard a commotion, looked to my right and screamed, Papi, Papi. I saw my Papi go down on the ground, tackled and shackled and hands cuffed behind his back. I could not see Papi's face. The cop with his knee on Papi's back smashed it into the pavement as he grabbed a fistful of Papi's hair. All I could see were Papi's jeans and his construction boots. I screamed. The world started to sweep from beneath my feet and buildings started to tumble, and I nearly had an asthma attack from my constant screams. One cop, a woman with the word ICE on her back, pulled me by my waist as I flailed and kicked in desperation. Students, parents, and some teachers crowded around as the officers held me to the ground while my Papi was pushed into a police van. La migra, someone yelled. Others laughed with their fat fish faces, taunting me with alien and illegal and get out and go back to your country. I shouted, this is my country, you stupid doofus heads. Before I knew it, a crowd of white kids surrounded me, but other kids, black and brown and some white, came to my rescue. Somehow, though, I was the one who was taken to the principal's office. 2. Now the school was split in half. A group of kids wore Make America Great Again hats just to taunt us. But others, black, brown, and white kids, were down with us and not racism. In all my 9 years on the planet, I never had a fight, but a handful of kids wanted to start trouble. One day they scrunched up their faces and balled up their fists. We stepped forward in unison. We took off our jackets and our sweaters and dropped them to the ground. Then we stuck out our chests real proud so they could see our t-shirts that read, I am not an alien. I am not illegal. Why don't you go back to your country is not my favorite song. Get out is not my name. No more borders, no more walls. 3, the bullies backed down that day and moved on to their classrooms. The next day, the Make America Great Again hats had disappeared. Instead, some kids asked, where can I get the cool t-shirts? We didn't get any more glares or stares. One of the boys who bullied me even came up to me and said, my mom's a lawyer. She can help your dad. And as we walked to our class, he turned to me, guess what? I said, what? I'm just like you. I gave him the side eye and answered back, a girl? He laughed and I laughed. And then he said, my father's from Croatia. 4, that would make the perfect ending for a movie, but this is real life. And they took my papi away. And once again, the world was swept from under my feet and mommy's. She has to find a new job to help take care of us and help get papi back. One day, my papi drove me to school, a day I'll never forget. I get sad and scared when I think about where papi is. I keep his photo in the gold locket he gave me last Christmas. I keep it pressed tight and close to my heart. Okay, we're on time. We're on time. Okay, I'm going to do this poem. It's called, now raise your hand if you're from New York City. So you may know this experience. It's called Ode to Bodega Cats. They lay around like that one chancla you could never find, then spring up from nowhere, narrowly knocking down that last box of pigeon peas and rice left over from the Nixon administration with layers of dust thick enough to trampoline off. They help you pick the wrong winning lotto numbers, scratching a random claw drawn from and retracted from an unseen paw as you scrutinize the card in the dim bodega light, having forgot your reading glasses once again. When you take 8 years to decide whether you want a ring ding or a slice of pound cake wrapped in what resembles the sofa slip covers your grandmother bought just before summer to have the seat cushions glue themselves to the back of your thighs right before you head out the door to hang out with your friends when she says, mijo, bring me back a devil dog and a Pepsi. And don't forget to bring back my change. It is the bodega cat who puts you on blast, meowing into the store PA system, asking aloud if there's any more Kotex or Goya beans in aisles 3 and 4 so that everyone on your block could clown you for the rest of your life. No, you can't kill a bodega cat. Those mofos will cut you with quickness. Their claws swifter than a Swiss army or Ginsu knife, blunter than a ball peen hammer or those fillies you get in lieu of bamboo paper. The bodega cat shreds, sharpening his claws just to fuck with you as he lays back smoking a well-rolled joint along the dusty cans of motor oil no one buys because they don't have rides. This is the hood, my mellow, where bodega cats don't fucks with mice and ride the backs of rats like bronco bulls rambling through the projects like Pamplona. Bodega cats are badass bitches, ghetto snitches. They scratch that ass before it itches, leap up on counters that smell like fishes. They like Bebe's kids. They don't die, they multiply and will swat and swipe a motherfucker like a fly. They will leave some stank piss for you and have your Haagen-Dazs pint grow hair. Hell, you may spot one with a mouse tail dangling from its slant smile like a gold-toothed Cheshire or uptown Mona Lisa stuck on a porcelain throne, having run out of toilet paper. Okay. 2 more, I guess. I got time for 2 more? This is called I've Got the COVID Blues. I might need some water for this one. I've got the COVID blues, hazmat outfit to read the news. I got that damn viral blues, mystifying, perspiring, invisible shit blowing through the wind like yesterday's news blues. I can't think, breathe, or snooze. I got the rumble, rumble, chest rattly, bubble gut blues. I've been sanitized, ostracized, hydrogen peroxide, cleated in hospital sheet blues. My tears are sterilized, my fears capsized, spilling over my broke bedtime blues, so much so I'm afraid to read the news. I got the COVID-19 stockpile body bag blues, them refrigerated truck blues, them roto-rooter blues, them hack and wheeze, double sneeze, Vicks vapor rub, Robitussin, preparation ache, body ache, earthquake, ha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha blues. I've got them we wear the mask blues, them hand sanitizer, hydroxychloroquine booze blues, them broke heel hole in the soul blues, squeaky wheel lungs like shredded wheat blues. I got them lockdown, shutdown, god awful blues, them loveless, touchless, cold sheet blues. I got it bad, them blues. My head is heavy as a brick. I can't sleep. I'm scared to get sick. I'm so paranoid I can't stop my eye twitch. Wake up in a hyperventilating sweat blues. I got some Hail Mary full of grace, garlic string around my neck, get thee behind me, Satan blues. Them TB, smallpox, blanket, diphtheria, typhoid, Mary, love in a time of cholera blues. Them Bruegel, triumph of death, black lungs matter, black Orpheus, peach schnapps, Dr. Schnabel, Von Ram, beak nose, bleary-eyed cloak and swagger, death with occasional smiling blues. I got some backwater, fever swamp, Florida water, Espiritu Santos, Tuskegee. What had happened was anti-vax, death be not proud, snot nose, sit and shiver, novena reincarnation, take it all back, blues. Okay, so what's the time like? A couple of minutes? Okay, I'm going to...
You got about 8 minutes left, Tony.
Oh, 8 minutes. That's beautiful. Let me do a couple of pieces from here. Breathing in the Ruins. This is from the latest, one of the latest Obsidian journals that is dedicated to HBCUs, and I have a, it's, what issue is this? 47.2. So if you can find this, that'll be nice. About 9 of my students are in here, former students. Breathing in the Ruins. I am as isolated as Elizabeth Barrett Browning, never to be born, neither to be crowning. To whom shall I bequeath these lungs that bear the markings of stale air gone viral? I am a virtual prisoner to maladies unseen, a spine harnessed like a broke horse or crumbling column of the Colosseum. If only I had traveled there along the creaking back of this desolate rail where I, unmasked, ambushed by hacks and sneezes, inherit the hostility of gutter stairs in this crematorium of a choking city, 8th level of Dante's hell. Should I have swallowed the third rail or barricaded myself in the conductor's car, careening into darkness and light and darkness once again? Oh, Elizabeth, what was it like for you those sweltering nights you longed for London fair, who turned you out like the plague as you strolled along piazzas, breathing in the ruins of ancient air, your bones the cathedral, scaffolding such burning flesh, Sistine Chapel of despair? If I was the Bible in Trump's hand, if I was the Bible in Trump's hand, I would have exploded like a Claremont mind If I was the Bible in Trump's hand, I would have barbecued him like a taser. If I was the Bible in Trump's hand, I would have snapped like a mousetrap. If I was the Bible in Trump's hand, I would have lopped it off like a portable guillotine. If I was the Bible in Trump's hand, I would have nuked it like a microwave. If I was the Bible in Trump's hand, I would have smacked the shit out of him like the doctor did the day he was born for having a claw foot for a face. If I was the Bible in Trump's hand, I would have sprayed his eyes like a box of mace. If I was the Bible in Trump's hand, I would have beat him like John Henry's hammer. If I was the Bible in Trump's hand, I would have spun him around in a dervish of flames. If I was the Bible in Trump's hands, I would have slapped the orange off him. If I was the Bible in Trump's hand, I would have opened up like a Venus flytrap and snatched him from the frame. I think, okay, one more. This is called Dame un traguito, for Tato La Viera. I wrote this coming off of his funeral. It was such a festive occasion. Where there was a lot of jazz and salsa music being played, and it was just really incredible. And the poet Samuel Miranda made this broadside of my poem. It's called Dame un traguito, give me a little shot. And you know, the whole thing about a little shot, it reminds me of Ernest Hemingway's short story, A Queen Well-Lighted Place, in a sense, you know, that the old man sitting in the corner, drinking little shots. Dame un traguito para Tato La Viera. It is clear to see that Jesus was a conguero, beating back bongo skins till his palms bled bloodshot, raw shot red. No need to put an accent over the E to know who he be. Claro que sí. Pam, 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 pam. Cucurú. Pam, 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 pam. Cucurú. Pam, 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 pam. Cucurú. Cucurú. That he sang back up boogaloo for Obatala, swore by hypnotic effects of a bolero caught in the throat of a rising sun, suddenly sinking. Atacato's Jones coming down on 110th Street and Lexington Avenue in the crusty eyelash of El Barrio. That he multiplied wine by sending his little cousin people to cop a few bottles from Pepo's bodega, where he kept the muscatel stash just beneath the alabaster statuette of San Lázaro and Bustelo can urn of Doña Chicha's ashes, atop the register with the tape-faded Polaroids of his pregnant Tia in Ponce, and the songless Theo with the afro the size of Saturn in Sing Sing, inked up from head to toe. It's plain to see that Jesus spoke in 4/4 time and 1/1 that he tapped his dusty, rusty, patent leather zapatos to a rhythm only the children of Africans and Indians understand. Bailando con Yemaya, buscando la claridad, singing El agua limpia todo. Oh, was he born in a manger or Morrisania Hospital? The critics will ask their silly questions like social workers dumb to the reality of the times, but Jesus will pay them no mind. Nor will he adhere to the census takers, giving the side eye to tax collectors. The only numbers he cares about come out in New York or Brooklyn, so he could buy his baby a new pair of shoes, so he could walk on water, dry puddles of old wino piss, or tap his toes, trying to mimic the sound of dominoes, click, or ring finger slapping against that stiff neck of beer bottle to one sun-baked viejitos in guayabero shirts and Panama hats shouting, Manteca, con cerveza breath, working his arms and legs into a sweat-drenched rum stench rumba, furious frenzy, as if despojando, saying no, saying to no one and everyone in particular what he begins to hear, reverberating, breakdancing, bomba, planting plena in his inner ear. Fíjate!
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Do you still have a voice?
Allergies.
Allergies. Well, thank you so much for that wonderful reading that you just did for us. I have a question for you. I think I asked several of the other poets and writers that have been with us this season. Did the pandemic change your writing at all? What you wrote about?
Well, yeah, because I wrote poems about the pandemic. It just, I guess it gave you a lot of time, you know, to write and think and worry. You know? But, you know, the writing part was a way of making sense of all the madness and all the deaths and all the, you know, and dealing with the anxiety, you know?
Okay.
And the unexpected.
Now, I know, I mean, the years that I've known you, I know you have always been an activist a poet who writes about what is currently happening in the world. And is that something that when you decided that you were going to become a writer of whatever genre, is that the drive that you always had, or is that something that you came to after you started writing?
I think it was a natural growth because when I basically realized that I wanted to be a writer, I was like about 15 years old. And I was forced to read. I was forced to do a book report when I was in middle school, right? I was in the Bronx. I went to Junior High School 101 on Brooklyn Boulevard. And we had a cool teacher, Mr. De Los Reyes. And in the beginning of the semester, he gave out a list of books for us to select throughout the year to write book reports on. And this was probably in the springtime. And by that time, I didn't do that book report for some reason. I was just lazy. And I didn't have any good habits about reading and stuff like that. And so the principal came down on him because a lot of people happened to fail that assignment. And she said, you can't fail half the class. It's a reflection on you. So he came back to the class storming at us, you know, and angry with us. And we really liked him. He was a cool teacher. He introduced us to Shakespeare and stuff like that. So he gave us a second opportunity. He handed out that list again. And on that list, for some reason, the title Flowers for Algernon just stuck with me. And I was like, what's an Algernon? And I was really intrigued by that. So I went to the library, which, you know, me and my friends used to go there to hang out, escape the cold in the winter and to get air conditioning in summer, but we never really took our books. I asked the librarian, you know, how can I find this book? And so she taught me how to use the library card catalog, which they had back in those days. And so I went and I found it and I was like surprised by it. Like, wow, this is great. This is like magic. And it wasn't like a big giant, you know, Moby Dick or War and Peace type of intimidating book, tome or whatever. So I took it out and that weekend I just devoured it and I couldn't stop, you know, I couldn't put it down, the book. So I finished it. I was like, oh my God. And I had this big revelation that I wanted to be a writer and stuff like that. So my first inclination was wanting to be a fiction writer. And then I guess after that book report, which I got an A on, A+, I think, I just started going through that whole list. And that whole summer, I just started reading books like mad. And with all that reading from like the 9th grade all the way to the 12th grade or the 11th grade, I just soaked up so much that I just naturally started writing. And what came out first were poems. And of course, the beginning poems that we always do are like these sad, sappy love poems and stuff like that, you know, and poems about being lonely and all that stuff. But as I got older and I started to read James Baldwin essays and I started to see more, and I went to the military and I came back and I was reading a lot of Marxist, Leninist stuff and a lot of socialist writers and poets and stuff like that. And that just jived with my whole like personality and what my family comes from, like that fighting spirit and that New York energy. And it just happened naturally, basically. So, I mean, it was a natural progression. So I don't even know how to write without dealing with issues and politics and stuff. It just comes kind of natural. It doesn't, you know?
Uh-huh. That's interesting. My first poems were not sappy love poems. They were probably sad socialist type poems because they were always dealing with some issue.
What age were you?
My earliest remembrance of writing poetry was at the High School of Music and Art. I think it was the 10th grade. I was an English major in addition to being an art major. And the teacher assigned, we had to keep a journal and turn it in. And I found the journal like about 10 years ago. And I didn't even know I still had it. And I opened it up and all of the comments, a lot of the really positive comments about what I had written that teacher wrote was about my poetry.
Wow. You know what's
and as a kid, it didn't really, it's like it's just something I was doing to do the assignment, you know.
You know what's interesting, when I started reading James Baldwin essays, somehow I stumbled upon James Baldwin and I saw his face on the book cover and I was like, whoa, a Black man on a book cover, this is great. And then, you know, I saw Langston Hughes' face on the book cover too. That inspired me. So I started reading a lot of James Baldwin stuff and it really related to, you know, my family and where they come from in Harlem and all this stuff. And literally reading James Baldwin's essays taught me how to write. And it almost got me flunked out of high school because I was accused of plagiarism. One of my teachers, I think it was the last grade I needed to pass. And he said, okay, because it was like the first class of the day.
Uh-huh.
I went to Norman Thomas High School on 33rd and Park, all the way coming from Co-op City, right? So that was a mad journey, right? So I was always late for that first period. And so Mr. Bart was gonna fail me. And he said, I'll give you, write me a big, long essay. And then if you pass that, blah, blah, blah. You pass the class and you graduate. And so I handed in the essay. I said, okay. It was like nothing to me because I could write. And he didn't believe that I wrote it. So he thought I plagiarized it. He said, there's no way you could have written this, Medina. You got this from a magazine or something. And all the kids stood up for me and said, no, Mr. Bart, Medina's a real writer. He's a real writer. And so he gave me a 65 and I graduated by the skin of my teeth. But it was because I was emulating Baldwin's, these long
his style, yeah,
sentences and stuff. Yeah.
Well, we all start out that way, you know. We start out emulating somebody when you're writing.
His long sentences, I learned how to punctuate. I said, oh, this is how you use a semicolon. This is how you use a quote within a quote and blah, 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 blah. So that's how I did it. And I finessed that essay and he thought I cheated or something.
So how did you get into New York's poetry scene? I know that Luis Reyes Rivera was somebody that you were close to.
That's a good question. I talk about in this essay I called that I wrote after Miguel Algarín passed, called Miguel Se Fue, which is also oddly enough in this issue. It's a memoir essay.
Huh.
So how I got into the scene, when I got out of the military, and I went to the military for 3 years because I needed to make money to go to college. So I went on the GI Bill, and I went to Baruch College because Baruch was like literally 10 blocks away from Norman Thomas High School. So I used to see it all the time. I used to see it all the time. And when I was taking classes while I was in the military for college. So I said, well, I'm gonna apply for Baruch College. That's the only college I had in my mind. And I happened to have Addison Gale Jr. was my professor in literature, right? And by that time I was trying to start a magazine called Voices of Color and stuff like that. So every time we had class, after class, I would go up to him and talk to him and stuff. And he was reading my my op-eds that were in the paper and stuff, and they were very political and punchy and getting a lot of attention. And I was known as a student leader by virtue of my writing. And so he would just tell me, he says, Tony, whatever you want, you know, any writer, I know everybody, blah, blah, blah. And he used to talk about how James Baldwin used to always let him stay at his flat in Paris, in the south of France, when he would be out, you know, when he would be out of town and he could go there and visit and all these people. So I said, wow, I didn't know who he was at the time. So I ran to the library and got all his books, right? And I said, oh, Gail is serious. He's a serious dude. And so while I was at Baruch, I wrote for the paper, and I learned about a Black Writers Conference that was happening in Philly, right? Yeah. That Larry Robin threw every year or whatever in Philly, the Black Writers Conference. So I said, I should go there and cover it for the school paper. So I went out there, I covered it for the school paper. While I was there was this guy who reminded me of Amiri Baraka. I thought that was him. And I came up to him and he was talking to Paula Giddings. And he said, oh, they laughed at me when I told him, I thought he was Baraka. He said, no. But he said, I know Amiri. So he gave me his card, and on the back of it, he put Amiri's address. He said, on Saturday nights, they have Gimanco's Blues people, you know, blues cafe or whatever. So I said, okay. So I went out there and I met Amir and I read. And at that time, they were like celebrating Martina Espada. I think he got like an NEA grant or something, and Barack was celebrating. So I read into open mic, and Espada was like, yo, send me a poem, send me poems, don't buck. So then after that, somehow or another, I ended up in Central Park. And I knew Rashida Ismaili, and she was there, and Jane Cortez was reading with Baraka at that time. And at the end of the poetry concert, I went up to the thing and I said, hey, Rashida. And Rashida's, oh, Tony. So she said, why don't you come with us to Sekou Sundiata's? We're going to a party. It's Sekou's birthday. So it was me in the car with Amina Baraka, and I think Dave Mills. That's how I met Dave Mills. Dave Mills was there, and Rashida, and we all
crew here.
We all drove across Manhattan to the Bronx, to the Grand Concourse. And while we were there, Amiri and Amina said, oh, Tony, you gotta meet Miguel. You gotta meet Miguel. Miguel Agrin so happened to live in the penthouse with his sister. So they brought me up to meet Miguel Agrin and stuff. And I guess this was while the cafe's second iteration was being constructed. And so me and Miguel started hanging out. And I got introduced to the scene there. And then when I was at Baraka's, he introduced me to Ross Baraka, and he said him and Kevin Powell are doing this anthology called In the Tradition. And they invited me to submit work. And so I submitted work. By this time I was living in Harlem, and Kevin called me up and said, yo, you got to come to this reading that we're giving for NYU. And so it just blossomed from there, you know.
Yeah. You met a lot of people. You met a lot of our literary icons, like in a rush. It wasn't like over this long period of time. It was just like, whew, here they are. You're in this.
Yeah, my first professional reading, my first paid reading was with Ishmael Reed at the Painted Bride. I opened for Ishmael Reed, and Sonia Sanchez introduced Ishmael, and Miguel was supposed to introduce me, but he got Kevin. He asked Kevin to do it because Kevin knew me more. So, yeah.
Have you written the memoir yet?
No, but that piece is like a piece towards that. So yeah, that essay. It talks about that whole experience.
Yeah, you got to get all this down, Tony. There's a book in here.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it so happened that Addison passed, right? He had I thought he had 2 strokes, but it turned out he had complications from diabetes as well. But I think he had 2 strokes. And one of my other professors used to date him, not at that time, but back in the day, Sandra Town. She was also an African-American professor at Baruch, and she was a critic. And it was at Addison's funeral that I attended that she introduced me to Hakeem Madhubuti. She said, Hakeem, you got to publish Tony. You got to publish Tony. And then, you know, he publishes me. So yeah, it's a lot of these relationships that formulated.
Yeah. Wow. So, so the issue of Obsidian that you showed us, that's a current issue?
They publish so many things. This is one of the current issues. I think they've published about 2 or 3 issues after this, but this was held up because of the pandemic and the supply chain problems, right? Yeah.
So nice. And so that issue is dedicated to the HBCUs, the historically Black colleges?
Yes. And I have that memoir piece, I have a novelette, and I have about 3 poems in there, along with like 9 of my former students. So that's kind of nice.
That's nice. So tell me, how did you, I mean, you still write poetry, but how did you transition into children's books and young adult books?
Well, I've always admired children's books. I didn't grow up with any children's books, right? So I fell in love with the form as an adult. And Langston Hughes was a good, role model for that. I said, I really like the fact that Langston writes, he published for adults and young people. Mm-hmm. And so I guess around, what was it, 2000 or something like that? When the internet was virtually still young and we didn't have social media or whatever, I was on some listserv, I think Kalamu Yasalam's E-Drum at the time. Editor from Lee and Low was looking for work from writers and stuff. And I said, man, I really want to write something. So I read the requirements that she asked for or whatever. And I just wrote some poems down, and I sent it to her, and she liked the idea and she wanted to meet up with me. And then we had several meetings. And after that, and she kind of sold it. She got some support from scholars because she needed some support to take it to, acquisitions or whatever, the meeting, and to say, can we sell this? And it was because I wanted to write about, I've always seen these books from the perspective of children, middle-class kids of color. But I didn't see any kids from the hood, from the projects, that reflected like my background. And so I wrote towards that. And this kid named Deshaun, which is taken from my cousin's name, Deshaun Williams. So that became my first children's book, Deshaun Days. And one of the poems in that initial manuscript was called Christmas Makes Me Think. And one of the publishers really liked that as a standalone. So that one contract became a 2-book contract.
Oh, nice. Nice.
So that's how I get into that.
I'm going to open it up. Anybody that's on who has a question, feel free. Unmute yourself.
Go ahead, the question.
Oh, go ahead, Joy.
The poem that you read about Poppy getting taken by ICE, and that kind of is consistent with what you just said about things being seen from a child's point of view, is so powerful. I mean, all the poems were powerful. That one, I don't think I'm going to forget because it's so heartbreaking. I'm just wondering, how did you decide to write from her point of view? How did you decide to write that story? And how have people responded to it when you've read it?
I saw it on the news, and it took place in Harlem. And I've lived in Harlem for so long, but this time I was out here. And I just got so upset about it, but not like really emotional, but in my mind, I was like, I got to deal with this. I have to deal with this issue. I have to write about this. So I just put it in the back of my head, in my filing cabinet. I put it away and I said, I got to deal with that. And it just so happened that the Hudsons were doing this anthology, and they invited me along with, I guess, 50 other people who write for young people and illustrate for young people to do this anthology. And this anthology was a response to, I guess, the Trump era that we were living under, from the perspective of writers that deal with young people and their perspective. So when I got back from after I finished Am Alfonso Jones, the manuscript, in 13 Ways Looking at a Black Boy, I figured, let me go and take a trip and just decompress. So I went to Europe for like 6 weeks. When I came back, thank God the Hudsons reminded me of the deadline of the assignment. And I said, oh, and I still had that in my head. So I just, like, after I read their email, I literally sat there at my table in the dining room and I just wrote that piece. And they really liked it because they didn't have anything that dealt with that directly. And Cheryl edited. She was really good at, suggestions and stuff like that. It's like tweaking. And then I think one of the publishers of Random House was like, oh my God. When the book came out and they celebrated at the Schomburg, she was like, that piece, oh my God. And, I was like, I really want to do this as a standalone. So I'm working now with someone to try to make it as a standalone piece. I might have to publish it myself, but so it got good responses. And yeah, Joy, it's true. It affects you because it's coming from the perspective and the voice of a young person. And that really grabs you, and it's true, and the voice is authentic. That's what I like about children and young adult literature, because not only do they get you, right here and make you verklempt, but they deal with a lot of issues, that, like, more than any other genre or format, you get that in young adult and children's literature.
Addie?
Yeah, I was just going to springboard from what you were talking about, EJ, about how you write from a child's perspective. And I'm a retired teacher, so I was working with children for many, many years, and I became enamored of graphic books, graphic novels, because I myself, growing up in the Bronx, that was my first. Those were my first books. Comic books and reading and then when I graduated to, and I saw this other form, I remember reading, I have read a whole slew of graphic books because I want to write a graphic book, and I have a manuscript that I'm trying to get into a graphic book form because I feel it really is the best form for it. So I remember reading I Am Alfonso Jones, and was really powerful, really taken with it, and especially when you read the mother's speech, it tore me up. It tore me up again, because I remember reading that for the first time and saying, "Wow, this is the power there." This is the power there of expressing, through these different points of eyeballs, different perspectives, children's perspective, a young person's perspective, an adult, all these different things. And it really was powerful, really wonderful, wonderful. And yeah, and just happened to know, I knew Miguel Agarin very well. And my late husband and I, we published magazines called Time Capsule and Inside Out, poetry from America's prisons. And one of the, James Baldwin, who is a close friend, was the executive editor of this magazine, and he wow. was just, yeah. I have a beginning draft of a play about him coming to the house, and I had to make dinner for him, and I'm not a cook, but I had to make a good dinner for him. I didn't want, you know,
Wow.
Jane Cortez, Amiri, and Amina,
Yeah,
and all these people were just, you know, just part.
She used to get me readings at NYU when she was heading a reading series there and stuff.
Yes, yes, yes.
She read with Dennis Bruce and Suhair Hamad one time. That was
Oh, Suhair, yes, wonderful poet.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Oh, and that poem on the, I love bodegas. I knew the bodegas when I was growing up in the Bronx, and also in East Harlem when I was a teacher. Across the street from my school was a bodega, and we were in and out of that place all, you know, day and night. It was just a great place. But the cat, the bodega cat, just tore. It's so funny.
If you Google bodega cats and you press images, you see all these.
Yeah. I laughed so hard when you were reading that. It was so much fun to hear that.
Yeah, I was looking when he was reading it. I was going, yeah, I know that cat. I know that cat. Because you know, and you think about it, a lot of the bodegas were, because I grew up in Spanish Harlem and Wagner housing projects.
Oh,
I lived there till I was like 12. No, 16 actually. And Dennis's Bodega, because we used to go to Mr. Dennis's Bodega right on the corner on 20th Street and Pleasant Avenue. And you had to go downstairs to get into the bodega. You didn't just walk in on street level. So, you know, you don't think about it. When you're a kid, you just go into the store and you see the cat and everything else, and the music is playing, and you know, what's going on.
Everything's going on.
So I guess they needed the cats because they were a lower level.
The mice or whatever, yeah.
For the mice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was sitting there going, yeah, I know that cat. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just wanted to give you some levity because there was a lot of depressing poems.
No, actually, I don't think the poems.
I don't see them as depressing.
I don't see them as depressing. They're I did a reading once with Cheryl Boyce Taylor and another poet, and we were up in the Catskills, and literally,
wow,
we were doing this reading, and the people who came to see the reading were what I call mountain men. You know, they had on the plaid shirt, the ponytail, the cap, and I'm like, oh, okay. And we read, and after we finished reading, and we were, they came up to talk to us. One gentleman came up to us and said, "You write about real stuff." And we're like, we're kind of like, yeah. And he was so enamored with the fact that we wrote about real stuff. So you have this guy who's dressed like a, you know, the Paul Bunyan type thing, and he's talking to us about, you write about real things. And I'm thinking to myself, well, what do y'all write about?
Well, you know, the Catskills is famous for a lot of people, you know, vacation there. They also go there in the summertime, but that's where all the comedians used to go, you know, and perform. The old time generation comedians were probably the greatest comedians, used to perform in the Catskills, but also a lot of liberals, you know, live up in the Catskills, I think.
Which is kind of why I was like, well, I'm thinking to myself, what do y'all write about? Because I do know that the Catskills has a very big artistic community. So what are they writing about? If we're coming from the city and we're reading our poetry, you know.
He probably had a preconceived notion that it was just going to be, you know, writing about esoteric stuff and nothing that deals with, you know.
Right. So I don't find the poems are not depressing. They are what they are. They're a view of what is happening, you know, and you're not making any attempt to sugarcoat it. You know, you're not being. It's almost like, you know, Lucille Clifton when she was alive. Her work it's very simple. She's telling you what was happening in her life or at that time or whatever. But it has a depth to it that a lot of other people wouldn't necessarily get in their work trying to write like that. Yeah. So your work is that kind of work. It has a depth to it, and it's not depressing. It's a realistic, more of a realistic view of what is happening during the times that you live in. You're choosing not to hide it behind what I call the tree branch floated down the river stuff. You know? And you're not making people have to really struggle to figure out what something is about. And that keeps it relevant and open to a lot of people.
That reminds me of June Jordan's piece where she takes down Richard Wright for his bigger
Thomas.
Bigger Thomas character. She said, forget the metaphors. Forget the metaphors. Bigger Thomas was a monster.
Listen, I believe in a metaphor. I just don't believe in using the metaphor to the point where you're losing the general population of people who might pick up your work to read it. I always feel like the work should be accessible to someone who's in school, who's been told poetry is, it's very hard. They start the poetry course telling you how hard it's going to be, and you haven't read one word. So you already got the preconceived notion, it's very hard. And then they give you stuff that's very hard. And you don't even realize that there are other ways to write poetry.
Yeah. I mean,
so
one of those places that alienates people from poetry.
Yeah.
Right. They alienate people from poetry, but they don't know that there's so many ways of writing poetry and getting and understanding the poetry. So, and your work is very understandable.
Well, that was the beauty of having a teacher like Mr. Delos Reyes in the 9th grade, where, we would do like Macbeth, which became my favorite Shakespeare play. And he would have us literally memorize certain monologues and stuff. And if you were too shy to do it in front of the whole class, he would have you step outside the room and then do it in front of him or whatever. But you got such an appreciation early on for what people considered to be difficult material because of the language,
Well, the subject matter. Have any of your books been banned yet?
Yeah, Am Alfonso Jones was banned in Texas and Florida. I found
really?
out. Yeah, it was in a Penn article, I think. And I just stumbled upon it like a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
And
I figured, yeah.
Marley, the poet, she wrote about it. She wrote an article for Daily Plus, and they published it, talking about how they were banning my book. I thought it was a good thing. I was honored to be banned.
Right. The story of you going in the library for the air conditioning and the heat, but also discovering with the help of somebody to guide you there, the librarian.
We won't have that problem in New York,
But the idea that you take that away from people, this
is the thing. The DeSantis is a dangerous cat. Like what happened in Germany and Poland and France and all these places in the 1930s when Hitler was rising up in the ranks. It happened little by little, bit by bit. They changed this rule, they changed that rule, and suddenly it's like that June Jordan essay where she talks about you're sitting in a tub and the water's running right? It's warm water running and suddenly your ass is burning, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the time we're living under. And I don't know who's taking this seriously, because we could literally, you know, move in that direction by how they manipulate the voting and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
DeSantis has to be taken down.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we're in some crazy times.
Huh?
We're in crazy times now, again.
Always in crazy times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to learn our lessons, you know?
Yeah. Well, if anybody else has a question, go, you know, feel free. If not, Tony, I want to really thank you for blessing us today with your words and your work.
Thanks for having me. I had a fun time.
We
hope I didn't go over my time limit. You know what I mean?
Oh,
oh, don't worry about it.
Don't worry.
We give our writers enough time so they can present a wide range of their work. You know, it's not just a straight, oh, here, you got 20, you got 15 minutes, you got 10 minutes. No, yeah. You know, that was one of our tenets when we set up One Breath Rising, that we would allow a poet or a prose writer to have as much time as we would give a musician for a set of music.
Thanks for bringing up Lewis and Jane Cortez and all these people. I mean, we lost them so fast, so soon.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when Sekou passed, I was kind of like, he passed. I just talked to him 2 weeks ago. You know, it was that kind of. And then I was at because Lewis died in the winter. I think it was 2012. I was at AWP when I found out Lewis had passed. Yeah.
I just can't. It feels weird.
Yeah, it was like, what do you mean? What?
Because we always were in the same circles, like in Goma, all of us were all
right.
Doing all these readings together and hanging out and, you know, parties and stuff.
Yeah. So, yeah, you know, you miss them. You know, you miss those people.
You know, it's crazy.
Yeah. But the thing that we do is we keep on doing.
Yeah.
That's what they would have wanted us to do, to keep on doing, you know? So do what you can do.
It's good to see everybody here. This is nice.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much. And I know everyone on the phone, everybody who came really enjoyed your work. And I want to tell everyone that next month we have a double header going here. Believe it or not. We are going to have a live event at the Soapbox Gallery in Brooklyn, and the feature will be Craig S. Harris. And yes. It's going to be live, and it's also going to be live streamed. So you know, we'll be sending out information about that, and hopefully you'll be able to join us. Even if you can't join us in person, you can join us on the live stream. And that'll be Sunday, June 4th. And on Sunday, June 11th, we're going to be having another virtual reading. And our author for June 11th is going to be Randall Horton.